Hello, and welcome to the Data Mart Risk Management Program Recommendations by Nina Arnold, Spring 2014. Today's date is April 22nd, 2014. Data Mart is a cloud-focused company with a foresight to see that utilizing the web for products and services is the way of the future. Through virtual servers and data centers, Data Mart has an answer to almost anyone's IT problems. Data Mart acknowledges that consumers have concerns and issues with the idea of their data being stored on the cloud. Their goal is to work with consumers to relieve the stress of managing their business and managing an IT infrastructure as well. Data Mart offers three major services: Cloud Sites, a platform for building websites; Cloud Files, a storage service; and Cloud Servers that provide access to virtualized server instances. Data Mart prides itself on offering open source platforms to their customers. They believe that giving full access to the customer to customize and create are one of their key advantages. Data Mart is also willing to help create and foster any ideas that the customer has in order to gain business and trust. As part of this belief, Data Mart offers their customers a pay-as-you-go service, and this service eliminates the overbearing cost of implementing each of the three offerings Data Mart has to offer. Data Mart not only focuses on cloud-based solutions, they further their IT role as an IT person for your company or home or business. They will employ many of its useful items such as virus protection, an uninterruptible power supply, a UPS, cables to run your network, and more. They also have hosting available for your own software platforms, as well as partners with data mining companies to further help the customer recognize which information should be displayed online. As software as a service grows, so does Data Mart. They can serve businesses with cloud computing services, managed services, hosted backups, development, design and host websites, applications, VoIP systems, document management, and disaster recovery. They want to be a one-stop shop for their customers and want to empower their customers to get back what they do best, run their business. From a technology security standpoint, Data Mart has a few problems that we should discuss. Technology and sensitive data are all throughout the systems. So we have customer databases, we have the threat of hackers, natural disasters, tearing down the entire server farms, and we have viruses, worms, and Trojan horses as just a few problems that we foresee that could happen with Data Mart. The adoption of policies and procedures are a must, and we see that throughout the company there are some policies and procedures that need to be reviewed again, and training programs need to be reiterated and restarted throughout the company. Risk management is the process in which a company formulates the steps to assess and manage risk associated with the assets of the company. Each department within the company must understand risk and must work with the company to mitigate the risk to each asset. The 4 steps for risk for management are risk process structure, assessment of the risk, response to the risk, and monitoring the risk. In my review of Data Mart, it is my decision to use the factor analysis of information risk, or FAIR method, developed by Jack A. Jones. FAIR is a risk assessment plan to help analyze assets at risk and to better understand the impact each risk poses on Data Mart. The FAIR framework is broken down into 4 stages and 10 subcategories. The stages are: Stage 1, identify the scenario components; Stage 2, evaluate the loss event frequency; Stage 3, evaluate probable loss magnitude; and Stage 4, derive and articulate the risk. In Stage 1 of the FAIR methodology, we are to first identify the information assets at risk. This could be a computer or server, or it could be a smaller something like the folder that the information is stored on inside of the computer or server. The most important part of this step is to identify the specific folder that contains the content that is vulnerable. The second part of this stage is to identify the threat community under consideration, more specifically the category of who or what is actually threatening the asset. In our analysis of Data Mart, we recognize that the data center, servers, and customer databases are at risk. In stage 2 of the FAIR methodology, we have 5 parts to assess the loss event frequency, or the LEF. The loss event frequency is the amount of time that loss could occur as a result of an action by an outside force. The threat event frequency is the amount of time it will take an attacker to act against an asset, but may not necessarily cause the loss of the asset like the loss event frequency. The TEF, or the threat event frequency step, is normally referenced to a table from a very low frequency to a very high frequency to help attain a realistic time frame on the threat community acting on the asset. After determining the time frame, we must then estimate the threat capability, or TCAP, of the community acting on the asset. This should give us an idea of how strong a force or skill we should expect to face against our asset. Once we know how the danger will come about, we must then determine how prepared the company is, what controls are in place to protect against the threat. This step is known as the control strength, or CF. From here, we assess the vulnerability of the asset in relation to the threat agent or community, and our TCAP and CS score from above, from the previous 2 steps, will give us an idea of the real vulnerability to our asset. In stage 3 of the FAIR methodology, we are to evaluate probable loss magnitude, or PLM. The magnitude of the loss is directly related to the asset's value to the company. For Mart, the customer database is high on the scale of productivity, since it would be irreplaceable if lost or stolen, and the cost in legal fines would be great. Productivity is one of the 6 types of losses defined in PLM. Response, replacement, fines, competitive advantage, and reputation are the others. We also have the secondary loss magnitude. And the secondary loss magnitude is the loss that happens after the primary loss. For example, the loss of the Mart server would be directly related to the primary loss magnitude. The loss of the Mart's customer database would be the secondary, since it relates to the event of losing the server the database resides on. In the last stage, stage 4 of the FAIR methodology, we derive and articulate risk to sort and assign values to the risk and threats using the loss event frequency and the primary loss magnitude discussed earlier. Using a table or scale to review the risk from a ranking of very low to severe across both accesses, we can determine a general idea of what stage the risk is at and how much it would take to return to normal business function after a threat has occurred. During this stage, it is wise to step back and further review and analyze the results of the table. If the stage is not set correctly, the results could be disastrous once the event occurs. In the final stage, stage 5 of the FAIR method, we specify additional risk controls. So, for example, we have 5 here: defense, transferal, mitigation, acceptance, termination. So basically, we're trying to figure out what we could have done to protect ourselves, who we're placing blame on, what we could have done to mitigate the risk, who's going to be responsible for it, and what we're going to do in the future to protect against it. Continuing on with stage 5, we're doing the risk assessment evaluation for our customer database, and the specific threat is viruses, worms, and Trojan horses. So the loss event frequency was very high in this case. Our probable loss magnitude was high, and the worst case loss magnitude was also high. So overall, the risk to the customer database was high. Defenses that we could have put in place, or better put in place, I would say, are firewalls, the antivirus software, a current or updated operating system, trained our technicians and employees better, encrypted data, and password protection. Acceptance is what we're doing, or what we're going to accept as a response to this. So we can remove the risk, find a route of attack, how they got in, attend to the systems attacked and put them back online, verify information is not at risk, and switch to a different server if it was a specific server that was attacked. Termination, what we can do going forward, we can shut down that specific server with the customer database on it, get rid of any access to that specific database, change passwords to that system, purchase new antivirus software that could hopefully protect against further threats from viruses, worms, or Trojan horses, notify authorities of the attack if it's something that legal fines have to be taken into effect here, and then review staff procedures as to what happened when the risk occurred. Going along the same lines, the risk assessment evaluation for a hacker accessing the system. The customer database risk, again, is going to be at high because of the loss event frequency is high. The probable loss magnitude was very high on this one, and the worst case loss magnitude ended up being high. So our defenses are going to be similar to the viruses, trojans, and worms that we had previously. So firewalls, malware protection software, antivirus software, trained technicians and employees, encrypted data, and password protection. Acceptance of the attack, so we'd remove the risk, find the route of attack, attend to systems hacked and put back online, verify information that is not at risk, and switch to a different server. Termination, we shut down the system, change passwords again, purchase new antivirus software, notify authorities, and review staff procedures again to see how the hack occurred. In conclusion, for DataMart, my advice and controls that we need to put in place are maintain and improve firewall systems, create policy handbook for employees, manage systems with knowledge of known threats, and actively recruit an educated Chief Information Security Officer to restructure current procedures, and communicate across all lines of business to better enforce system securities.